Um, I see that I'm the only lawyer on the
Mhm.
slated list of speakers. And so I'm coming from a different, very different perspective than most people. Um, there's been a lot of activity here in the city. Many of you have probably heard about it. We've been talking quite a bit about the reckoning since the killing of George Floyd. We call him my tocayo. He and I have the same first name. But we've actually been involved in this for quite a bit. As a matter of fact, we had a press conference 2 weeks ago when we announced the filing of a class action against the sheriff's department. And it was the day before the 50th anniversary of the Chicano moratorium that was held here in East LA to protest the war in Vietnam and the fact that the majority of the people that were being killed in Vietnam were Black and brown. And of course, the sheriffs attacked the protests, even though there was around 5,000 people, children, families, and there were 2 that were actually killed, including a reporter. And I apologize that I just started getting sick yesterday, so I have a little cough. In any event, it's interesting that the struggle has been going on for quite some time. I would be neglectful in not mentioning, the Watts riots back in '66. All of these were about police brutality. And so we've been continuing in that vein all this time. And there have been various struggles, various organizations involved. Um, and I hear people talk about, oh, it's such a terrible time. It's not a terrible time. This is the tale of 2 cities. It's the tale of 2 times. It's the best of times. It's the worst of times, but it's the best of times. Because we've got so many people out in the streets now, weekly, and they're mostly young. I've been out, but I'm mostly old now, so I don't go out as often as I used to. And of course, the Guild has legal observers at all these demonstrations, and it's amazing. They're very passionate, they're very educated, they're very committed, and and because we keep a database of people, excuse me, that have been arrested or have been injured, we know that many of them are the same people. They go out nightly, they go out 3 or 4 times a week, and they participate. So the recent history of some of these movements here, some of these demonstrations, date back to the latter part of May. And the demonstrations took place in various cities. LA has a lot of smaller cities around it: Santa Monica, Beverly Hills, Long Beach, East LA, etc. And on the 30th of May, there were a number of different demonstrations, and the LAPD was leading the effort in terms of trying to suppress the demonstrations and arrest the demonstrators. And what they did was that they arrested people, handcuffing them with plastic zip ties, and then essentially they put them on buses in cramped quarters during this COVID epidemic. And then they transported them to faraway places, and they held them in custody an average of 4 to 8 hours, some as long as 12 hours. And then they were cited out. They were cited out on a ticket for refusal to disperse or curfew violations, which in fact, under California law, they should have just been given a ticket and allowed to leave. They didn't, they shouldn't have been held at all. And as a consequence, we filed a lawsuit. There were a number of violent incidents that took place in the ensuing few days. And what happened was that the LAPD and the Sheriff's Department used rubber bullets, pepper balls, um, tear gas, and other implements, some batons, against people, um, and caused quite a few injuries. One of my clients, for instance, 22-year-old young Guatemalan woman, was shot in the face with a rubber bullet. It fractured her jaw. She had to have, in an operation, they installed a piece of metal in her jaw to support it. Numerous people have contusions, bruises. You can see them. They come up with these pictures. Thigh that's, the bruising is like 6 inches in diameter. These people are amazing. They're committed. Now what you see is they go to the demonstrations. They wear helmets. They wear shields. They carry boogie boards as shields so that they get shot at. They have shin guards for their legs. And so we filed a lawsuit against the LAPD, and right away they started curtailing their activity. We have a fairly progressive mayor. I'm not saying he's perfect, but he came out right away. He knew he had to get in front of this, and he had to try to make sure it wasn't going to harm the city that much, especially because eventually they'll have to pay damages. I've been saying this is the 5th time that the LAPD has taken this final examination on how to treat protesters and demonstrations, and each and every time they have failed that test. Each and every time. They always resort to violence. And this is indiscriminate violence. This is not violence against people who are throwing water bottles at them. This is violence aimed at people that are demonstrating. This is violence aimed at people that are reporters. Almost every day now, what you see is all these young folks are pulling out their cameras and they're posting all this on social media. And so they consider themselves reporters. And it's amazing. They're getting the word out.